Okay, we are in the end stretch of our series on making remote work work. We have covered two of the three pillars required, practicality and legality, and we are looking at productivity, making sure the work gets done and gets done properly. Now, it is your job as a manager to make sure that the work is done properly. It is also your job to take care of the people you are managing. And there is a facet of management that does both of these things. It is having regular check-ins in which you give real feedback to your team members. So today we are looking very specifically at creating a process for feedback, because the only way any employee can improve is by getting feedback. And we know this, and we're generally quite happy to give positive feedback, but we don't enjoy giving out negative feedback. Telling someone they did a bad job is uncomfortable, and the nicer and more empathetic you are, the less comfortable it becomes. This is even more true for a remote worker, because giving negative feedback through the confines of Zoom is even more uncomfortable. But the problem is that if we avoid the negative feedback, which is what we tend to do, then they're not going to learn what they're doing wrong. That feedback is invaluable for your employee. If they don't learn what they're doing wrong, they're never going to get it right. If you don't give them the feedback, they don't improve, and you are going to have to end up cancelling their employment at the end of their probation, or even ahead of the end of their probation. Whereas if you do give them the negative feedback and they listen and implement and improve, you could end up with one of the best team members you have ever had, which means that feedback is a positive thing. Whether it is negative or positive feedback, it results in good things. And having a process or a checklist or a reference file that helps you makes it much, much easier to do. Because like all processes, if you have the checklist, you can work through them even when your emotions are not playing ball with you. There are multiple ways that we can reduce the discomfort around negative feedback. So that is what we're going to look at in this video. So the first thing that will help you in giving negative feedback is to recognize that it helps your employee. It is a means by which they can improve and a means by which they progress in their career. It is not really the criticism itself that is painful for people. It is the way in which it is given. So if we focus on giving feedback the right way, we'll not feel as bad when we have to give negative feedback. And the first thing that you can think of when giving it in the right way is never give feedback angry. Walk away, take some deep breaths. If necessary, take a longer walk and come back later. No matter what feedback we are giving, it is best given when we are calm and logical. And this is even more true for negative feedback. The more angry and upset you are, the more likely that you're going to give harmful criticism instead of productive feedback. Once you are calm, come back, plan the feedback beforehand. Think through what you want to say and how you are going to say it in a way that they understand you. Not just understand what steps went wrong, but understand why that's a problem and why it needs to be fixed and how it can be fixed. Think through how you are going to encourage them to ask questions instead of clamming up, and what you can say that will encourage a proactive response. Planning it out beforehand is going to help you to remove the emotion from the feedback. And that's good for you and it's good for your employee. Always give feedback in private. Even if you are doing it nicely, no one wants to be criticized in public. Don't humiliate them in front of their colleagues. Don't do it in a team meeting. Don't do it in a full room. Wherever possible, do it face to face and in a relaxed environment. I know this is a remote worker, that we're talking about, but you rather give negative feedback through a virtual call, making sure that you smile in the meeting than in a text message or an email. Remember that you set the tone of the meeting and they can only see your head and shoulders. So smiling can help you, can be a gentle way to let them know that although they're getting negative feedback, they're not getting it telling off. They're being told something that should help them improve. Part of that is avoiding negative language. I know you're telling them something that they did wrong, but you don't have to tell them they did a bad job. You can use strictly factual language and focus on how they can fix the problem or improve. In other words, instead of angrily telling them what a mess the books are, you point out the exact mistake, explain the reason it's wrong, and tell them what they can do to fix it and avoid it in future. As the more factual and unemotional, and the more you remove negative connotations from the wording, the better it would go. This is why it's good to plan it ahead, because it's hard to do that on the fly, especially when you are frustrated by the fact that something's been done wrong. Don't lie to them and soften a serious consequence. This is for the empaths that are watching. If you are a particularly empathetic person, or you care about people's feelings, or a people pleaser, then we can be very tempted to downplay a mistake because we don't want our employees to feel bad. The problem with this is if they don't recognize the severity of the mistake, they may not take as much care to avoid it the second time around. So while it's important to not be ugly or to blow something out of proportion, it is as important to be completely truthful about the consequences of this mistake. That's consequences for them personally, for you as the manager, for the business, and for the client. They need to understand why you don't want to see this mistake in the future. Be genuine and profuse with your praise and your appreciation. Sorry, that is this one. Give them the good or the bad. Let me try and put my things in the wrong order. So be genuine and profusive with your praise and appreciation. You want to mention where they have done a good job, making a point of showing gratitude, especially for the times that they've gone above and beyond. You don't just want to tell them what they did wrong. You want to tell them what they did well. And actually, you want to do that more often. So if you actually send unsolicited and random notes of appreciation or thanks, and you make a point of praising good work, then they respect your feedback when you have to give them negative feedback about bad work. And then we're on this one, give them space to respond. Sorry, I keep clicking on this. So they might have a valid defense. They might raise issues with your existing work process that you were unaware of, or it might turn out that actually they're correct, and the way the company's been doing it is incorrect. I mean, that does, it's very rare, but it does happen. So give them the chance to explain themselves and to explain their thinking and why they did what they did. Maybe it's an obscure rule that doesn't normally apply to clients, but in this client's industry, it is applicable. So give them the space to speak out. And if they are wrong, speaking out and respectfully debating the matter will help them reason through the problem and possibly also help them recognize where they went wrong. So allow them the space to respond and make the effort to truly hear them. Because if you show them the respect, they should show you respect. If they don't, that highlights another problem, especially if we're talking about an employee in a probation period. If you are giving them legitimate feedback about something they did wrong, and they are taking offense instead of listening and responding and discussing it with you respectfully, this might not be a good fit and you might want to end their probation anyway. So it's important to give them that space to respond. You want to see how they respond and how they respond to a debate over an issue, as opposed to just being told, what's the word I'm looking for, being told what to do and not given any chance to defend themselves. And finally, this is the point that keeps coming up. Give your feedback, whether it is good or bad, regularly. If you are having weekly check-ins and if feedback is part of the routine, then you don't end up in a position where you suddenly have to sit down and tell them something bad. Sudden, unexpected negative feedback is uncomfortable for both of you. But if you are in the habit of giving continuous feedback to each other on a regular basis, then it is much easier and much more comfortable to highlight issues and to collaboratively find ways to fix them. So do it regularly. And for yourself, summarize it in writing. Whenever you meet with a team member and you give or receive feedback, be sure to summarize it in an email and send it through to them. Because this is how you're going to prevent future misunderstandings and arguments. If there were any misunderstandings during the meeting, this is your chance to provide clarity. If you have gone through this in detail in a meeting and then you've written it out in an email and they suddenly realize they didn't understand what you were saying in the meeting, this is your chance to clear it up. And most importantly for you as a manager, it is your written record for future performance reviews and disputes, and possibly for having to end probations and let them go. Continuous and positive check-ins will help you to build trust and rapport with your team member. The more they trust and respect you and know that you trust and respect them, the better they will take negative feedback from you. So please make the check-ins regular, give positive feedback often, and this will make it much easier when you do have to give negative feedback to a team member. In our next video, we're going to talk about how to build connection with remote workers, because connected and engaged employees are always more productive than distant and disinterested ones. But also, if you have a good relationship with your employee, it's much easier to give them negative feedback as well.